How expensive is Guild Wars 2, and is it pay to win? Now, these are two questions that I see pop up quite a bit. Now, the first question makes a lot of sense to me because Guild Wars 2 is a game where you need to spend some level of money to get the full experience of the entire game. But the second question, is the game pay to win, is something that I find quite weird, and I'll dive into it a bit more later on in the video. So hello everybody, my name is EK, and first of all, I'll be answering the question, how expensive is Guild Wars 2? Now, somewhere on the screen, most likely on the right, I will have some information regarding the stuff I'm saying, so you have some visual representation as well. I'm going to be talking about different tiers and kind of talking about how much money you need to spend to get to each tier and what you're getting at said tier. So the first tier is not spending any money whatsoever. What if you want to play this game, but you don't want to spend a single dollar, euro, or whatever currency you are using? Well, that's entirely possible, because the entirety of the base game, so the game released in 2012, and the entirety of that base game, including even some additional content added later on, is available for you to play completely free right now. There are, however, some restrictions in place. These restrictions are mostly there just to prevent people from creating a lot of different accounts and gold selling and all those kind of nasty things that developers don't want in their games. So they're kind of a necessary evil. We'd rather not have them there, but then again, they do have to promote selling their game at some point to you as well. So you can read the full list of restrictions. I personally don't think they're that bad. I've had friends play through the entire experience from 1 through 80. Yeah, they're a little bit annoying sometimes, but you're still getting to experience the entire base game that back in the day we had to pay, I think, 60 euros for. So, it's quite a good deal. And it is definitely enough to get your feet in the water and, to really figure out if this game is enjoyable for you. You get to familiarize yourself with the core systems, you get to enjoy the game, you get to enjoy the entire base story. You can create pretty much any character you want, and you should have a pretty decent time. And then at some point during your free-to-play experience, you can decide if you want to move on to one of the other tiers. So tier number 1 of spending any money would be to simply buy the expansion. Now, this is definitely the first step you should be taking when you want to start spending some money on this game. There are currently, at the point of recording, 2 expansions. There is Heart of Thorns, released in 2015, and there is Path of Fire, released in 2017. These expansions together cost you a total of 30 euros that cannot be bought separately, you can only buy them as a package, but 30 euros is extremely cheap. Now, the great thing about this is that I'm pretty sure these expansions are on sale more often than they're not. I can't recall a time I've checked their price and they weren't on sale. They're pretty much always 50% off, which puts the price at 15 euros or $15. One thing that I do want to highly recommend is to not buy these expansions through external sellers. So stuff like G2A, that is associated with credit card fraud, I would highly recommend not buying through those merchants. The reason for that being that ArenaNet, the developer of the game, is very much against this. And if your purchase is being associated with a stolen credit card, ArenaNet will permanently ban your account. All the money you spent, all the time you spent, will be fully gone. So please buy through a registered seller. You can see the list of sellers on their website, and they're pretty much, as I mentioned, always on discount. So the monetary difference between buying through an external party or one of the official sellers is extremely small. Also, I think this guy right in front of me is currently checking out my character. Thank you very much. Now, there's also a third expansion coming. Currently, it is January 2022. And the expansion supposedly launches somewhere late February, so we're expecting the 22nd, 25th most likely. This expansion is currently coming in at 30 euros. So if you want to buy the entire experience, you're spending 45 to 60 euros, depending on if you're buying the other expansions on sale. However, do keep in mind that because back in the day, Heart of Thorns and Path of Fire were sold separately, and then I think about a year after Path of Fire's launch, the expansions kind of got bundled together, and you could buy both of them for the price of Path of Fire. And I would highly expect them to do the same thing again with the End of Dragons expansion, where you buy End of Dragons and you get Heart of Thorns and Path of Fire included in a bundle, and the price is going down. And, you know, as I mentioned, they're pretty much always on sale, so I put this total price for the expansions at 45 euros. This is a purchase that cannot be circumvented. You cannot buy these with any other means, and you have to buy them with actual money. If you're doubting whether you want to jump into the next expansion, just buy the current two. Buy Heart of Thorns and buy Path of Fire, 15 euros, and you'll have hundreds of hours, if not thousands of hours of enjoyment out of just those two. So, this is the easy part. This is pretty much where everyone knows what's going on. You play a game, you buy the game's expansions, and you're good. You can play the entire thing. But the question that pops up quite a bit is this everything that I have to buy in order to play the full game? And the answer you'd expect is yes. You would expect that if you buy the expansions and you have the base game, that you can play the entire game, right? Well, unfortunately, within the realm of Guild Wars 2 and ArenaNet, this is not entirely correct. So, the way the game works, and this is why I have the story panel open right now, is, for example, here, you can see we have My Story. Now, My Story is the base game. So this is the thing you play if you are a free-to-play player. Then you have something called Scarlet's War. I'm not going to go into this too much, but it's kind of a series of events that told a story that happened in real time as the game was live, and the content got added and then deleted later on to kind of resemble an ever-changing world. Pretty cool idea, kind of bad execution, and what ended up happening is this stuff is not playable anymore. So after the core story, there is a second part here, Scarlet's War. As it's not playable, I recommend watching a video by a YouTuber known as WoodenPotatoes. If I remember, I'll put a link in my description as well that will tell you all about the events that happened there. If you care about the story, it's highly recommended you watch that, because some characters are going to be introduced there that you want to know about in the future story, and if you don't know about them, then you're just gonna, you know, kind of be thrown in there with these characters and you'll have no idea what's going on. It's possible, but it's not as seamless as you want it to be. Unfortunately, I'm hoping that by the time you're watching this video, this has been fixed and Season 1 is replayable, but unfortunately, we've been waiting for quite some time and it's not happening. Anyway, moving on. We have Season 2. Now, Season 2 happens before Heart of Thorns. Heart of Thorns, as I mentioned, is the first expansion. So if Season 1 is not replayable anymore, what is Season 2? Well, Season 2 is kind of where they changed their format, and they went for an episodic approach. This meant that every so often, there was going to be a story patch released, and this story patch you got for free if you were playing back at that moment in time. So there was a release window of, let's say, a month, and if you logged in anywhere within that month, you got a patch for free. This system, they're still employing to this day. So all of this stuff, Season 2, Season 3, Season 4, and the Icewood Saga down here, all of these story patches I've gotten for free, because I have played since launch. And every time there was a new patch, I at least logged in to claim the content. The downside is that if you want to play all of this, you'll have to buy them retroactively. Yes, you're not done buying the expansions, you kind of also have to buy this. Now, you don't have to buy these. If you're someone who doesn't really care about story, and you don't care about having more maps, and all you want to do is just play PvP, play World v World, anything like that, and you know, the stat sets that you can get through those methods aren't particularly interesting to you because your build doesn't really utilize them or something, you can completely skip these. You can just jump into the content you want to play, and you can ignore these. However, if you care about the story, or if you just want to have all the maps available because some of them have pretty good gold farms, and you know, it's just content, it's just fun to play, or if you want to have the stat sets in the specific content releases, then you're going to have to grab them. So, how expensive would all of these be? Well, I made some calculations, and if you buy them all in bundles, because if you buy the entire season as a bundle, you get a 20% discount. I highly recommend just doing that, because if you end up buying them one by one, then you'll run into the issue where you're paying more money than you'll have to. So, the entire price for Season 2 is 1280 gems, Season 3 is 960, Season 4 is 960, and the Icewood Saga is also 960. In total, this bumps us up to a total price of 4,160 gems. This is a decent amount. But hold on, before you click away and before you're thinking this game is too expensive for me, let me explain how this works. So, you can buy gems. And like I said, you need 4,160. Now, obviously, as you can see here, 4,000 gems is 50 euros. This kind of runs into that thing where it kind of looks like you have a bad scheme where you can't buy 4,000 because you'll have too little, and you kind of don't want to buy another 800 because then you're spending 10 euros more. You also don't want to buy the 8,000 pack, so you're kind of like stuck in between there because you need 160 more than you can actually buy. That's true, but Guild Wars 2 has a system to make this a lot more fair. If I go to currency exchange here, you can see I have a certain amount of gold and a certain amount of gems. And I can do custom exchange down here. So this means I can buy gems using gold that I've earned in-game. So if I want to buy 4,160, which is what I will need to get all of the Living World stuff, I'm not spending anything that I haven't earned in-game. That's currently 1,260 gold. Now, this value changes because this is ever-changing, and you can check, every few minutes, and it's going to change the amount of gold you have to spend. It doesn't fluctuate too much, but if there's a big release or something big in a gem store, then the conversion ratios can change a little bit. You can look into this, but this is, far beyond the scope of this video. So you can do two things here that I recommend doing. Either you buy 4,000 gems through regular means. So, wait, what happened to my... I've never seen this. What happened to this window? What? I've played this game since launch and I've never seen this happen. Thank you for being on the recording. That's great. Anyway, you can buy 4,000 gems spending 50 euros, and then you can buy 160 through here, which is 50 gold, which is, even for a relatively new player, it's not too much. So, that would be tier 2 for me. Like I mentioned, you don't have to buy these seasons if you don't care about them. But if you do care about them, this is the way to go. So, in total, so far, if you are not spending any gold and you're doing everything with, your actual money, then you have spent 45 on the expansions, and you've spent roughly 50 gold on gems. I highly recommend at least doing this transaction here, unless you're going to be spending the leftover gems on the next tier. So let's say you've spent a total of 95 euros so far. Also, characters, can you please stop talking to me? I thought I chose like a nice comfy space here where nothing ever happens, and then these guys are talking to me. Hold the phone. I will have to... Wait, why don't my settings open? Hello? Settings? Thank you. Thank you very much. Dialogue volume, and you're gone. Thank you very much. So, next tier would be the tier where we're talking about convenience items. I think this tier is almost out of the scope of this video, but I wanted to include it because I think it's important to at least talk about. There are some items in the gem store that you kind of want to buy. You kind of want to buy these because they just make your experience so much better, and I would recommend buying them. But don't worry, these are not things that you will need if you're just starting the game. These are also things you can once again buy with gems, which means you can buy it with gold. You can just play the game, and you can buy these as you go. So the ones I recommend are, first of all, there are character slots right here. If you have all the expansions, then you have access to a total of 9 professions. If you have all the expansions, you have access to a total of 5 character slots. This means that if you want to play everything, if you want to try all the professions, if you want to try all of their elite specializations, you will have to buy 4 more character slots. Assuming these character slots are not on sale, which, sometimes they are, then this would cost you 3,200 gems. So once again, I'll go back here. 3,200 gems would be a total of either, roughly 1,000 gold, or you're spending, let's see, 3,200. That would be roughly 40 euros, a little bit less than 40 euros. Then also there is something in the store here that I highly recommend, which is the Copper Fat Salvage-O-Matic. Now, the exact thing it does, I won't go into detail too much, but it's a very convenient salvaging tool that doesn't run out, and you spend copper instead of it having charges, which means that you can just have it in a shared inventory slot. which if I open my inventory, it's a bit of a mess, I'm sorry. You can see up here that I have a Copperfed Salvage-O-Matic. I put it in this slot right here. Now this slot you get for free, because if you're buying the expansions, you get a shared inventory slot because you have a level 80 booster in here, which, by the way, highly recommend you do not use unless you are familiar with the game and you know that you won't get lost. The amount of times I've heard people talking about buying the game, using the booster and being like, okay, now I want to play the game, and having no damn clue what to do is too damn high. If I got €1 for every time I heard that question, I probably would have bought everything in the gem store by now. And then finally, what I think is the last convenience item that I would kind of recommend is the Bank tab expansion over here, which is 600 gems. I recommend buying either one or two, just so you have a little bit more bank space. The bank space is relatively limited. You don't need this. Like I mentioned, this is convenience. But these are the first 3 purchases that I would make after I had bought the Season 2, 3, 4 and Icebrood Saga packages. Now, if you are someone who doesn't care about the seasons, you can obviously kind of ignore that tier. And you can look at tier 3 and see if maybe you want some character slots. If you, for example, are pretty much exclusively a PvP player and you just want to play every single profession in PvP, then just skip the Living World seasons, or at least for now, skip them, and then you buy the character slots. So with those character slots, you can then, play all the PvP you want. PvP makes you money, and at some point, maybe you want to use that money to buy the seasons after all. So you can kind of fill in this depending on your priority, but this is kind of how expensive the game is. So to sum it up, if you wanted to buy everything that I've just mentioned with just your actual wallet, you don't want to do anything in game, and you want to have pretty much the best experience possible, then you would spend roughly €150. Keep in mind, this is the perfect scenario where you're buying everything, even stuff that you will not need. You are buying stuff that you do not need to actually spend money on because you can buy it in-game, but you want to bypass it because, you just prefer it that way. And you're not paying a monthly subscription for this game. The entire game is just buy once and play for free forever. So even if you were to spend €150 here, I think it's not that big a deal. I think, personally, that's totally fine. Because imagine if you're playing Final Fantasy, or imagine if you're playing WoW, or any other subscription-based game. I'm not quite sure what the exact price is for the subscriptions currently, but I'm assuming it's somewhere between the 10 and the €15 range. Let's take the lower part of that range. Let's say it's €10. If you play those games for, let's say, 14, 15 months, so a little bit over a year, then you will have already spent that same amount, and you're going to have to keep paying. Now, Guild Wars 2, on the other hand, is a game that I have played for a total of 9 years. I have played this game for thousands of hours, and I've probably spent a couple €100, which might sound like a lot. But if I'm thinking back about, how much I could have spent, or how much other games were incentivizing me to buy, then it's not too bad. You can go through the store. The store is very much non-pay to win. This is kind of why I wanted to come back to this at the end. The only reason people might think the game is pay to win, there's kind of 2 reasons for it, and I kind of want to touch upon them. So the first reason is that you can buy gold with gems. So as I mentioned in this video, you can buy gems with gold. But you can also buy gold with gems. So this means that, let's say, I just care about getting the best stuff that I can possibly get. I'm a new player, and I want to just gear myself very quickly. I want to be ready for endgame within an hour after I start playing the game, which in theory is possible. I buy the expansions, I buy a level up boost, I level my crafting, which can be done using just gold, aka buying it through gems. Then I also buy all the gold that I need to craft the Ascended gear, which is the highest tier, and I'll be ready to go. So let's say to do that, I need like 400 gold. Now, 400 gold will be 2,000 gems. So I could then spend, let's say €25, and I'd be fully geared. Now, that might sound very pay to win to you. If you're someone who comes from those, Korean grind MMOs, and trust me, I have played those for thousands of hours. I'm very much aware of the nasty business practices that they employ. this might sound extremely pay to win. But the thing is, gear in Guild Wars 2 doesn't really mean that much. You can get the same gear if you're an active player and you just play, you're leveling up and you're just playing casually for a couple of weeks. You can be at that point as well, which might sound a bit weird, but Guild Wars 2 is pretty much just all about skill. I can gear any character I want in, well, a very short amount of time. I can gear pretty much any character I want in, at most, a couple days, in any stat type I want, but I'll be shit at them. If I don't actually practice my rotations, if I don't actually get good at the game, then it doesn't really serve a purpose. So yes, you can bypass the monetary part, but the monetary part is actually a small part of it. Kind of compare it to playing League. You can buy champions in League of Legends. You can buy them with gold instead of playing the game. But does buying them with actual money make you better at the game? No, it just allows you to play the part of the game that you want to play a bit sooner than the rest. Is it a bit of a bypass? Yes, but it's a free-to-play game and I have to make money. So, in that sense, the store is very fair. The other angle people are saying is kind of true in a sense, and it is that Guild Wars 2, because getting gear cap is relatively easy, is all about cosmetics and prestige. And unfortunately, and this is a truth, a lot of the better looking skins are in the gem store. But this means that even though you can get a legendary, which requires a lot of work, this means that quite often you can buy a skin on the gem store that looks as good, or maybe even a little bit better, than something you might have to work for hundreds of hours. This is a little bit of an issue, and I personally think there should be more in-game rewards that look as flashy, but I also understand that the game needs to make money in order to keep living on. The company needs to make money in order to pay their employees, in order to keep creating content for us. Because the expansion sales themselves, it's nice and all, but it's not going to sustain a company. They need a revenue stream. So I don't mind it as much. So if you consider getting shiny items as the ultimate goal, and you can buy shiny items on the gem store, then yes, in a way it is pay to win. But you can also buy those with gold, remember? You can use gold to buy gems and then buy those. Personally, I am someone, I really enjoy doing difficult content. I enjoy doing fractals, which is kind of like difficulty ramping dungeons. I enjoy doing raids, which most of you, I'm assuming, are familiar with. And it's difficult content. You can get titles there. You can get certain skins that you can only get in those raids. You can get certain achievements. I enjoy that part, and I think that's the prestigious part. Fortunately as well, ArenaNet has been doing more and more account binding of prestigious stuff, which means it simply cannot be bypassed using gold. In theory, there would be ways, but it is not easy. You will have to play the actual content to get the actual skin to then show it off. And honestly, I think that's fine. Because if you've played Guild Wars 1, the most expensive armor in that game, obsidian armor, generally looked quite bad. It didn't look extremely flashy. Some of these skins I actually thought were quite ugly. But because it was prestigious, because people knew what it meant, it looked good. Like, it didn't physically look good, but people still wanted it. Because it had prestige. Because people knew what it meant. And Guild Wars 2 still has that to some degree. If you see a title where someone cleared a certain boss with certain restrictions in place, you know that they most likely earned that title all by themselves. So I hope that answers both questions. I know I've made it a bit of a longer video, but I really just did want to talk about both these subjects. And I think it's important that I really talk about how Guild Wars 2's spending pattern works, where you have to spend your money or where you should spend your money depending on what type of player you are. Also, if the game is pay to win, because I've seen this pop up so many times, and it's not pay to win, guys. Pay to win would mean that you can actually buy power that other people cannot get, or get it so much quicker that other people cannot catch up. It is pay to win to a certain extent, where you can, make it, where you can get to the power level a bit quicker. It doesn't make a difference. It's a skill-based game, so don't worry about it. That's what I'm trying to say here. Don't worry about it. If you are good at the game, you will do like 5 times more damage than someone who isn't good at the game, but has better gear than you. People have cleared raids in green gear. Green is like middle tier gear. People have cleared raids under leveled. People have cleared raid with the weirdest comps imaginable. Yet people who aren't good at game, who have all the best stuff, are wiping. And that's because Guild Wars 2 is not a gear check game. Yes, good gear helps. But Guild Wars 2 is a skill game. And skill, fortunately, cannot be bought. Thank you very much for watching this very ranty video. I hope this answers some of your questions. If you have any further questions, guys, feel free to just pop them in the comments. I will be glad to answer them. I always enjoy talking to any viewers. So, thank you very much. Have a nice day. And I'll see you when I decide on another topic to record a video on, which seems to be quite sporadic recently. So, yeah, I'll see you then. Bye!